All right. We are here.
Welcome, everyone. We are here with Eliza Knight, former original member of Step Into the Story.
It's true. It's true. I'm excited to be back here.
It is. We're glad to have you back. I mean, we were sorry that you had to go. Not because we actually replaced you, but because you were so big that you couldn't have fit it in.
I know. It's such a good crew. And so we try to have people back on.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be back on and get to chat with you guys and say hi to everybody, which is awesome. But I do feel bad that there's so many things that we want to do, and then you do them and you're like, okay, I really don't have time for this. Even though it's fun, I have to give it up. Yeah.
Right. You can only do so much. But it's always lovely when you can guest.
Yes.
And I was going to say, your career kind of exploded with the Mayfair Bookshop. So you really
suddenly
had a ton on your plate.
Yeah.
That was a great book, by the way. That was
I love that book.
I don't know if I named it my top read of the year, but it was right up in my top 5. That was one of my favorites for the whole year when it was out.
I appreciate that. It was such a hard book to write. I enjoyed obviously the whole writing process, but it was really a tough one. So I
have to be honest, when I started it, I kept saying she picked the least interesting Mitford. And then it turned out no, this was the most interesting because I didn't know any of that. And she's the most identifiable. I mean, I don't think any of us could really identify with the fascists, but but she was the most you really could understand her, and she really humanized her, and I loved that. I absolutely loved her at the end of the book.
Yeah. That's the one thing I really wanted to do with her was to sort of show this other side of her, the more human side that was not something that she presented to the world. Because I always feel when you have a person who's sort of your quote unquote anti-heroine, there's a reason why. And I mean, unless you're one of her sisters, there is no reason. I think they were just insane. But
if you had picked one of them, it would have been far harder to sell that as
so much harder. Yeah.
As a sympathetic heroine. So
yes. So being able to pull out all of the things that were hurting her on the inside, I think that really helped.
And so now you're tackled it again with your latest, which is starring Adele Astaire. You went with another famous person who isn't as well known as people should know.
And I actually discovered her while I was researching Nancy Mitford for the Mayfair Bookshop. So I was reading letters, obviously, between all the sisters and the friends and things so that I could get a handle on her life and thought process. And in one of the letters, she said that she had had lunch with this woman named Deli, and that Deli loved all the free love going on with all the, bright young things. And she thought it was hilarious. And I thought that was hilarious too. So I wanted to figure out who she was. And the little note at the bottom said it was Adele Astaire, sister to Fred Astaire. And my first thought was, I had no idea that Fred Astaire had a sister.
Right.
What? And then second of all, what is his sister doing in London having lunch with Nancy Mitford? That is so random. And as it turns out, they were actually related by marriage. So Adele's husband was the uncle of Deborah, Nancy's sister's husband. That is so much information right there. Give you a whole family tree. But they were related by marriage. And also Adele had made friends with a lot of aristocrats, including, fun fact, she dated a prince. So she was.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. I knew a little bit about Adele Astaire only because I'm a big Fred Astaire fan, so I knew that she was his vaudeville partner. But I had no idea that she was as famous as she was.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, if you look at people oh, they danced together as children. But she was during the height of their career in the 1920s, she was the more famous one. So in fact, when she was invited to London in 1923 to perform, she was the only one invited. And she said, well, I'm not coming without my brother. And they were okay, fine, he can come too. You guys can perform together, which is so weird because he was so famous later on when he started movies and things, and she sort of faded into the background to pursue other things. But I just find their whole dynamic and relationship and their careers really fascinating.
So Barb, that kind of leads into a question that you had.
Yeah. Because I was curious, because we should point out that this book has 2 POVs, because it's also a fictional character named Violet Wood.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious. Violet's story is very much about a woman who's very driven towards stardom. But I was curious why you didn't do Fred's POV, because he was the opposite of Adele in that he was very driven to stardom and perfection, and she wanted to retire. So I was just curious what made you decide not to do him.
So the reason I didn't do him is I felt like he had had enough attention in the limelight, and I really wanted this to be about Adele. And he was such a huge personality, and obviously became hugely famous. I didn't want him to overshadow her story. That's another reason why the book is titled Starring Adele Astaire. So we really put her right up front and center as the focus. And the fictional character that I have, Violet Wood, is based off of some other famous dancers that had a similar path growing up in the East End of London and trying to make it famous. One of which was Daisy Violet Wood, so I named her after her. She was famous in the late 1800s, so a couple decades before the story takes place. But I wanted to have a fictional character that I could kind of move around in Adele's circles so that you see Adele from a different perspective, because in Adele's point of view, we're in her head and we're seeing things as she would see them. But I really love the idea of being able to watch someone and see them from the outside also.
Mhm.
And it allowed me to give her a friendship that we could get into more of the intimate details that she wouldn't necessarily talk about with someone else. And then the other fun thing I did with Violet is she's Adele's story in opposites. So, except they also both started in the same place. So they both started in poor circumstances and made it to stardom, but with different things. So, Violet has a mother who's not necessarily supportive of her career choices. She
That's
doesn't
putting it mildly.
mildly, very opposite.
Yeah.
Whereas, Adele's mother is what I like to call her momager. So she was her married mother, tutor, all of that stuff. And then we have the fact that Adele was really lucky to have performed with her brothers. So she sort of grew up in the performance world with a protector by her side. A lot of women were taken advantage of in the arts, and just like today, there's still people being taken advantage of by men in the acting and performing arts fields. And so Adele was lucky that her brother was there, so that a lot of the time she wasn't taken advantage of because he was there beside her. Whereas Violet, like most women in the acting world, didn't have someone there to protect her, and so she was taken advantage of. And I wanted to show that sort of seedier side of the acting world and the dancing world, because I think it's really important to note those differences.
Yeah.
And then also with Violet, she has a sister versus a brother, and in that capacity, she's the one sort of caring for her sister. So she's a caregiver versus Adele, who is being cared for. And also the different decisions that women make as far as like family. Adele really wanted a family, Violet didn't. And I wanted to showcase that too, because I think a lot of women who don't want a family, people don't necessarily understand why.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good to share that story, because it isn't an unusual story to have. There's a lot of women who don't want a family, they want a career. And I think that it's important to show that too.
That totally just answered what my next question was.
Oh,
no. No, it's awesome. It's fine. But what I had put at the end of my next question was, like, even though they both come from very different places, I mean, different areas in their career in different countries, and they're kind of unlikely friends, and yet not so much. But right in the back of your blurb, there's the question of, like, fame at what price kind of thing. And I kind of felt like even though they came from different places, they both embodied that in different ways. So I think that's a pretty central theme.
Yeah, it really is. Because I think, that's one thing that, your average person doesn't have to deal with, is that if you're going to be in the limelight, something's got to give. And, we all, at least I love, reading People magazine and watching celebrity news and things like that. I find it really fascinating. But at the same time, it also makes me really sad that they can't just like live normal lives.
Right.
And so they're giving up a lot now. But, on top of that is actually a universal question, which I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, which is, do we choose a career or do we choose a family? Why can't we have both? Can we have both? And so that was like another theme in the book.
Well, trade-offs seem to be a theme in general. Even after like they made their choices, there were trade-offs involved in it. You know,
Yeah.
Adele chose marriage, but there were trade-offs that she had to make because she fell in love with Lord Cavendish.
Right.
Not just career-wise, you know, but her whole life was a trade-off. You know, do I stay with this man and because I love him, or do I go because of, you know, his issues or whatever? So there was trade-off was a big theme in this book, I thought.
Yeah, it really was. And that was one of the things I had fun with, was being able to play off of those sorts of things with each other, with both girls, because they were both different and also sort of the same, you know?
And also sort of the same. And they had their commonalities, right?
Right.
One of the things I liked is with Adele's storyline is, yes, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything because it's historical fact that Lord Cavendish was an alcoholic, but she loved him anyway.
Yeah.
And they made the marriage work despite it, you know, and she was unhappy in some things, but she was happy in others. So it was never really like a this or it was, there was a nice balance of it. There wasn't, I guess I'm saying is like a lot of times you have a story and you have the alcoholic, there's more drama attached to the conflict with the alcohol. And in this case, it was how they made that work, because she clearly stayed married with him until he died.
Right. Well, and I think that also has to do with personalities too, right? So like, you know, in Nancy Mitford's life, her husband was also an alcoholic, but he was also a jerk and, like, you know, a philanderer, and he spent all their money. And Adele, her husband had a serious alcohol issue. I mean, starting super early, because by the time he was 30s, he was already having liver issues. So, I mean, who knows how long he'd been a serious alcoholic, but he was also a nice guy. Like, and he took care of her and he paid their bills, and, you know,
and he loved her.
He loved her. He wasn't out cheating on her. He adored her. So it was totally a different type of personality. So I can see where in her relationship, you know, she loved him for him. And yes, he had this terrible vice, but the vice didn't make him a terrible person. It just made.
Right. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't any of those
just
things.
Made him human.
And it you sort of allude to that it was war, might have been exacerbated by his participation in the war. You say a few things that, you know.
Well, and like, I think his family life and things like that. Yeah, there was probably a lot of internal things that caused that. And depressed. I think he was very depressed, because it seemed like when certain things happened in their lives, he would spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't need reasons to spiral. It just happens. On a lighter note, I have sort of a fun question for you. So I know this is going to show up as backwards, but when we look at the cover,
it's not backwards to me.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
Okay, that's good. It looks backwards to me. So, but is this Adele and Fred on the cover?
Yes.
Okay.
I was so happy that they did that. So when we were talking about covers, and I said, I don't know if you guys could do this, but it would be so awesome if you could actually put Adele on the cover. And this picture, I believe, is actually black and white, and they were able to do like a sepia covering to it, and they added some lipstick and like a little color to her dress. So I just love that you get to actually see them on the cover.
Yeah.
You can see the Astaire in the jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I wondered, and I looked inside the cover to see if there was anything that said, you know, like the picture, and there wasn't anything that really said that it was. So I thought, I'm going to ask. That would be very cool.
Isn't it cool? I love it. And it just shows also like the way they looked at each other was so loving, and like they were so tight knit even until the very end of their lives. I mean, a couple months before he passed away, she had already passed away. And he was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. And he, like, the first thing he said was, I owe all of this to my sister. I wouldn't be here without her. And I all like teared up when I saw that on YouTube, but it's just really sweet.
It's funny because I find those kinds of covers really interesting. I know Jen Robson has had a few too with the gown and coronation year, where they're actually pictures of Elizabeth. And that kind of thing. So getting permission to use those is pretty spectacular.
They did something similar with the Mayfair Bookshop. On the inside is actually a picture of the real bookshop too.
Oh,
I've got to go back and look. I've got the book.
Yeah.
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 Um,
And then my other question was about, because I read your author's note, like it's one of the things that I yeah, Barb's like, yeah, Donna, the author's note.
I
But
love them. Sometimes she reads them first.
I know.
actually love the
Well, no, I now read them at the end
Oh, good.
because
And there's spoilers.
right, because I read one not too long ago, and normally what happens is I get like halfway through the book and I find something that interests me, and then I'm like, I wonder if that's in the author's note.
Right.
Well, I did that, and then I got completely spoiled for like the plot.
Really
So
good.
now I make myself wait. But
See, I do the opposite. I look halfway through. I go to Wikipedia and start Googling it. So I'm just as bad.
I get all the
yeah,
information.
but you'll look at the fact and not read the author's note, which might give away the story. So
Yeah.
That's true.
But so I read the part about your daughter doing dance and that whole thing. But I'm curious, like, were you into dance? Did you do dance? And if you did, do you still? And also, did you know like this kind of dancing, or did you have to really do a lot of research into dancing of this time period?
So I am actually really super uncoordinated. Did ballet until I was like 6 or 7, and my parents were like, I don't think this is the right thing for you. And then I tried soccer and like all those things. But I actually love dancing, and I take dance classes like at my gym. There's like a dance rhythm class I'm going to tomorrow morning.
Fun.
But like, so I love dancing. I'm just not good at it. I would never have been a performer or anything. And when our first daughter was born, this is actually hilarious, and she knows this story, so it's not embarrassing, but her middle name is Grace, and it's not Grace like because I loved that name. We gave her the middle name Grace because I am so not graceful. And I was like, this child will be blessed with having grace.
That's manifesting 101 right there.
Right? So she actually started dancing when she was 3, I think. And then she danced competitively through her senior year of high school. But she did jazz and contemporary dance and hip hop dance. So not ballet. She actually hated ballet, which I was fine with because I did not enjoy it as a child either. But she loved it. And so I got to do a lot of her dance competitions and recitals and things like that. So I was kind of in the dance world, like vicariously through her. And then my good friend, actually also a writing partner on another book, Denny S. Bryce, was a dancer. So I was able to ask her a lot of questions about being a performer in, she danced in Chicago. So on stage in a famous capacity or whatever. So I was able to be back over her a little bit. But a lot of this stuff was actually just research. I looked up on YouTube dance lessons on waltzing, and like I would be in my office with no one watching but my dogs doing the waltz, and like I would look up like the language of dance so I could make sure I had like the right verbiage in the book and all of that. So I basically was like teaching myself and watching a lot of things online. And then obviously I read Fred Astaire's memoir, so he had a lot of stuff in there as well. So a long-winded answer to your question is no, I'm not a dancer. Yes, I love dancing.
That's awesome.
However, I was an actress on a community stage, so I was able to pull some personal experience from stage life into the book, which was nice.
Yeah. And I did know that about Denny.
Yeah.
And I knew you guys
I know Denny, but I did not know she'd dance.
Yeah.
What a fun fact.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Yeah.
In a former life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you guys have co-written something together too, right?
Yeah, so our book, it's called Can't We Be Friends? And it's a novel about the friendship between Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe. And that releases in March of next year. We just got I think it's the final cover, but they haven't said yet. So we haven't revealed it yet.
Can't share it.
We like it. And I think everyone else is going to like it too.
Nice.
So,
and then how about you singly? What's next for you?
So in June next year, my book, The Queen's Faithful Companion, will release. And
the ones about the corgis?
Yes, the corgis. I'm so excited about that. I had so much fun writing that book. I got to just like dive into a dog's head and write chapters in a dog's voice, and that was so much fun.
I was so excited when you announced that on Twitter. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
When's that coming out, you think?
It comes out in June next year. The first Tuesday, I think that is, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I think it's June 4th. That's what they said allegedly right now. So we'll see, but that's what is on the plan. I'm very excited.
Totally on my 2024 reading list now.
Thank
I
you.
was so excited when you said that.
I can't wait to hear what you think, because obviously I've never written in a dog's point of view before, but I love dogs so much, and I just had so much fun writing that book. And I think I really was able to, like, well, pull it off with the dog, but also like kind of humanize Queen Elizabeth as well. So that was fun.
Exciting.
So is it only the one point of view?
No, so there's 3 points of view in that one. It's Queen Elizabeth II's point of view,
Okay.
the dog's point of view, and then she had a woman. I have a fictionalized version of the different corgi carekeepers, but it was called the Keeper of the Queen's Corgis. So I have that point of view as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking a whole book from a corgi's point of view could be really interesting.
I totally could have done it too, but when I pitched it, I was like, it's going to be a small percentage of the book, because I thought they would just flat out say no.
Yeah.
And they were like, yes, we love it. So then I as I was writing, it took up a little bit more than the small percentage that I thought. She gets about 25 or 30% of the book, actually. So
I love that.
yeah, it was
Very cool.
Fluffy butts. Oh, we got a ding.
Yes, actually, no, it was my daughter-in-law telling me that she is still home.
Oh, yeah. I know that. So we did this last broadcast too, where Barbara's on baby watch. That's
Every broadcast this month, I've been saying I'm on baby watch. She still has not. I've been sending a lot of vibes for her to just pop the little guy out.
Yeah.
fingers crossed it's today.
Right.
I think she's ready. Fingers crossed today.
Yeah.
And then Barb, you had another question for Eliza.
Well, I had a couple fun questions.
Yeah.
Actually, well, I had 3. So you want me to do my 3? One is, are you still doing your true crime podcast?
So we actually took a break from that just because, like I was talking about earlier, there's so many things I want to do, but not enough time to do it. And that one's taking up a lot of time with the research for the different cases. So that one's on hiatus right now.
Okay. And then the fun questions we had were, do you have a favorite Hollywood musical?
Of Fred Astaire's or
just well, I would say Fred or in general, but Fred did so many classic ones. It's pretty easy to hit one with him.
So my favorite all-time one that I love and I've seen a couple of times is actually The School of Rock. I love that musical. I think it's so funny. I love the music. I actually have the soundtrack on my Spotify playlist because I listen to it every once in a while. I just think it's funny. And then I also saw Mean Girls a couple of years ago, and I loved that one too. But I've seen a lot of them, you know, the classics like Chicago. I love that. I love Wicked. I pretty much love every stage thing I've ever seen. I haven't seen one I don't like. And then I obviously wasn't around when Fred and Adele were dancing on stage. So
I don't think there's any film of Adele Astaire.
No, there's not. It's actually really sad. If you look on YouTube, you can see a picture or a video of her like at a rehearsal with her brother, and it's 30 seconds long and there's not much in it at all. And then there's one when he was in visiting London with the USO to perform. She introduces him to the crowd and she's in her uniform and he's in his, and they do like a little thing together, not a dance or anything, but they're just chatty and it's really cute. And that's about it. You can listen to their songs though. And so they recorded some songs from their performances and they're on Spotify and YouTube. Oh, and my favorite one is I'd Rather Charleston. I love that one. I played that all the time because it really showcases their personalities. I think that their personalities were quite similar actually in a lot of the plays they did. Just like some, you know, movie stars you watch now, like they have a thing. So I really like that song, The Best of Theirs. And then for Fred Astaire's movies, I love The Royal Wedding.
That's such a fun wedding. Yeah, that's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can ask you know the questions. You can ask the last one.
Well, actually, there was one other one that you were going to ask too. That's not quite as fun, but we're both really keen on like just getting this perspective. Is why do you think fictional biographies are so popular?
Well, I can tell you why I like them, and I think it's probably the same reason for a lot of people. And it's that you want to get that inside view of someone's life that you find fascinating. And you know, most people that are writing biographical fiction usually tend to pick people who have sort of like these larger than life personalities, or at least a life that is really interesting to dive into.
Yeah.
And so it's, I mean, that's one of the reasons I like it, is that I get to see inside someone's life who really lived. And then also because I'm such a nerd, then I can dive down that rabbit hole online or documentaries and find everything I can about their life. I mean, when I was researching starring Adele Astaire, I spent 2 days at Boston University's Archive Center because they have an Adele Astaire collection there. And I was all day long reading diaries, letters, looking through her scrapbooks and reading her mom's diary and reading all these articles and reviews. And it was so much fun. I could have actually stayed longer, but they told me I was only allowed there for 2 days because it was during.
I love it. Was like they kicked me out after 2 days.
They were like, that's enough.
That's funny.
So yeah, I could have done that forever. I was having so much fun. It's like, you know, an inside view of someone who's so cool, like their life. And I just love that. Although I will say that if I ever become like super cool, I never want anyone to do that to me. Like, don't come digging through my letters and my diary.
No, they're going to be burned.
Right? Burn it. No one wants to know that stuff. So I think our last question is, what are you reading right now?
That's right. We always like to hear.
Yeah.
So I actually am reading this book. It's sitting right next to me so that I could pick it up later. Hotel on the Corner of Barrett's.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. I finished the book, but at the end, this is a special edition, and at the end, they have Keiko's story, who was a character in short story to go in this special edition. So I'm about to start reading that. And then on audio, I just finished listening to A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
Oh, yeah.
So good. I really loved it. So I downloaded the second book in that series to listen to as well. I've read
Jamie's book.
It's so good.
Did you pick it up after seeing him?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should tell people we were all at the same conference. We all got to hear him speak.
Yeah.
It was great.
At the keynote, his keynote was so funny and so genuine. I literally went straight to the bookstore because the bookstore there didn't have a lot of copies of everyone's books, and I wanted to make sure I got a copy. And so I literally booked it out of there and went and bought it.
Yeah, it was a really good read. And I thought when it first came out, I just thought that was one of the best titles I'd ever heard. Like, it's so evocative.
It is.
And then he turned out to just be the nicest guy.
So nice. He was really, really a genuinely nice person.
I need to get his latest because I haven't yet, but
that sounds really good. Yeah.
It sounds so good. Very good.
So while we're talking about books, though, and good books to read, we should remind everyone it's starring Adele Astaire.
It is. I'm going to hold up the cover down, even though you have one behind you.
It is available at every bookstore you can imagine. But if you want to order it online, I will put the online links in for a couple places. Or you can go to Eliza's website at elizaknight.com. And I'm sure she has every link that you could possibly want to.
Right.
Probably some cool behind the scenes stuff and whatever else you can find on her.
Yes.
And then we really appreciate you coming on. I know you've been whipping around the country promoting the book. So
thank you. This was really fun. I'm always happy to be on with you guys. You guys are great to chat to.
It's the best way to nerd out and talk to authors.
Right?
And
love doing that.
And research. And
we're so excited to see the people who started this program go on and become too busy to do it. Because
right?
It's like, careers are going out. So
we're doing yes.
It's always nice to hear it's because their careers are taken off. So
right, and that they're in demand and busy and writing great books, and
that's right.
That's what keeps us like with TBRs.
Yes, me too. My TBR is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I ordered 4 more books last night because Indigo sent me an email saying, "It's your birthday this month. Take an extra 20% off." And like, I'm already a Plum Plus member, and I already saved 10%. I'm like, well, hot damn. So
twist my arm.
Right. So 4 more books coming my way. Like,
we should point out that Barnes & Noble's having a sale this weekend too, so you could probably grab it at a discount there too.
All right. So before we go, I'm going to let everybody know what's coming up. So next week on the 25th, is it the 25th?
24.
It is.
Very good. Close. 24.
Okay. We are having.
Oh, you're right, 25th.
Is it the 25th? We have to look here. Good night. It's the 22nd. All right.
Yeah, we're organized.
Second, 2/2. We're doing our monthly writing room where we are talking about sagging middles, and so we'll have some we'll have some tips for you to keep your story moving forward and keep your readers turning the page. And then on the second Tuesday in September, we are talking about 3 Words for Goodbye by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb.
Oh, fun.
That's one of the ones that I ordered last night. And of course, people can watch our earlier videos on YouTube at youtube.com/@stepintothestorybooks and join the community at facebook.com/groups/stepintothestory.
All right. Thanks,
I
everyone.
think I got that right.
Thanks again, Liza and Eliza. And we're so glad you came by.
It was so much fun. Thank you guys.
Yeah. And we'll maybe we'll try and have you and Denny on when the next one comes out.
Oh,
That would be fun. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right.
All
We'll
right.
talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.